Just like not bringing race or, any things like that into it, just on these numbers, on the steep decline decade on decade, is this entirely normal?
Well, I think being a statistician, it's good to look at the long term. So if we go back 100 years, Mark, the UK population was 38 million people. So it's currently 67 million people. So we've seen a massive, massive rise over the decades, 29 million more people across the population. Now, I think looking forward is very interesting in terms of what the ONS data is showing, because they project what the population would look like. So they're saying now over the next 100 years, the population is only going to rise by 3.6 million. So that's about a tenth of what we've seen over the last 100 years. But what the figures don't show, and this is coming, Mark, this is coming to the UK over the next 100 years, what those figures kind of underplay, I suppose, is the dramatic change in British society, because what they're projecting is over the next 100 years, we lose 17 million people in the UK population due to natural change. That's because we're having far fewer births now, the number of deaths. And to top that population up, we'll have another 21 million net immigration over the next 100 years. So you think the population may not look like the numbers are going to change dramatically over the next 100 years to what we've seen in the last 100 years, but it's going to be entirely driven by net immigration coming in. And those are numbers, Mark, where you're talking a kind of an assumption of around 205,000 net immigration kind of a year. And remember what we saw last week? We had 500,000 people coming in. So it could even be a much bigger kind of number when you look over the kind of the impact of immigration on the wider UK population over the next 100 years.
Well, you said, you tweeted out the other day that the Albanian population, the Albanian incomers, the Albanian immigrants have gone up something like, I think you worked it out to 3,742%, something like that. That's big, that's obvious, that's in your face. They were certainly in your face on the bridges behind me the other night. And yet even that, even a provocation such as that doesn't seem to change the muted political discourse on this topic.
No, and obviously most of the Albanians are now coming in via kind of what you would class as the illegal route over the channel. And you only got to go back before this year, Mark. There was very few Albanians coming across at all. And what the Home Office figures came out last Thursday, they tell us how many people are coming across on these small boats every single quarter. And you're right, it's like a 4,000% increase in the number coming over when you look at July to September now versus July to September last year. And the second is Afghanistan, third's Iran, fourth's Iraq, and fifth is Syria. But Albania is off the scale. It's over 3 times more than the second highest country. And I've seen nothing in the data to suggest that there's no non-economic reasons for the Albanians coming over. But I think what the wider immigration figures that the ONS published last week showed, Mark, is that we had a net immigration of 500,000. Just how sustainable is that? We've got the big natural change issue, Mark, is the fact that we got fewer births than what you would, to sustain the population of the UK. If you go back to 2001 or to 2002, to buy a house, it was about 4.8 times your salary. It's now 9 times your salary. And a very interesting statistic, Mark, in terms of the impact of people buying houses later, kind of not being able to live with their partners till later, is the latest figures show that by the age of 30, half of women now are childless. Where if you go back to the 1950s, it was just 1 in 4. So that, I think, is the birth crisis that the government needs to get a hold of.
No, but that too derives from immigration, because people who, as you say, would have had 3 children by the time they were 27, are still living with mummy and daddy and don't get to move into their own bedsit until they're 38 and have so instead of having 2.4 kids, they have one little yuppie designer kid when mummy's 43. And even those people, I would bet, are going to actually be leaving the country because they can't afford anywhere to live. So if they can find a reasonably pleasant country, I don't know where it is, Slovenia or Tajikistan, where you could actually have a small house with a bit of a garden rather than waiting till you're 58 and being able to afford a bedsit. We always like getting the numbers for you, Jamie, because the numbers do not lie. Well, they do sometimes. They do play fast and loose with them sometimes, but the hardcore data doesn't.